Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends. I'm in a mood. I think everything should be done in song, like we were in a musical or something. If only we could do that without annoying the whole fucking land, right? I am Brittany. Hi. How are we? I 100% think that there are times that I get dressed in the morning and then my whole personality comes alive. And that was this morning. Prior to putting clothes on, like when I was just chilling in my pajamas, I was chill. I was demure. I was doing a face mask. I was watching the last 2 episodes of Selling Sunset. And then I put clothes on and I was like, what? Who is she? Who's that baddie over there? That's me. Oh, hello, Ibra. Thank you for coming to the pod. We appreciate your glorious presence, my magnificent queen. Please move. All right. So with all of that, hi, how was everybody's week? My week, exceptional. Wouldn't accept anything less. Now would we? Like, for real. All right. Things I had to share. Like, I caught myself saying these things and I was like, this is the dialogue that I speak outwardly each week. And I thought, yeah, we should share that with the pod. So, things that I heard myself saying outwardly this week. Stop stealing food. Your SNAP bennies have not been cut. Okay. Are you working today or nah? That's inappropriate behavior for a young lady. Be nice to your sister. She hasn't always known love like you have. Right? Like, let's love people. You're too young for wine. Coffee is bad for you. Only a little bit of milk. It's not good for your tummy. And I know that you just want love, but it's so hard to love you when you are so demanding. I said all of these things, and I said them outwardly, verbally, loudly. And I said them all to the animals in my house. Every single one of them was said to an animal walking around my house. Mostly the cats. But every one of those things was said outwardly to the animals. I don't know if that gives you a perspective of like what is going on around here, but when I'm actually telling my cats to stop stealing food because their SNAP benefits haven't been cut, that's real talk, right? As if they know exactly what's going on in the world and could relate. When I'm telling them to love their sister because she's adopted and they're not, and she deserves love because she didn't have it her whole life, as if they understand that. They do, obviously, and I believe it, and that is why I say all these things outwardly to them. So, yeah, there's that. That's kind of the dialogue that goes on in my home. Also, we just had Halloween. If you have been following me for any length of time, obviously not on the pod, but if you've been following me on other social medias or know me in person, you know Halloween's not really my jam. Not because I don't want it to be, but because I am not creative. That has always been my stance. Halloween's not my jam, not because I don't want it to be. I'm just not creative. I love, 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 love looking at everybody's Halloween costumes on social media. Like when kids go back to school, I'm like, kids go back to school. How cute. Meh. Oh, look at your holiday photo. How cute. Meh. Like I don't care. Halloween, I fuck with everybody's Halloween pictures. I can't get enough of them because some people are so creative and I am obsessed with it. I love it. I love it. I love all of you creative souls who come up with great costumes, who dress up your animals, who do the big like family themes. Somebody I went to high school with, middle school with, oh my God, I was in school with my whole life with. They did their family, the whole family did like a Little Red Riding Hood theme. And so there was a wolf, Little Red Riding Hood, a grandma, the lumberjack, and somebody else. Because there's 3 kids. So I don't remember what it was, but there was like they had the whole like Little Red Riding Hood theme. And it was so fucking fantastic. Oh, and the grandma. Did I already say that? The wolf, the grandma, Little Red Riding Hood. Those are your obvious. The lumberjack. What was the other one? There was another one. Fuck, I don't remember now. It was so great. I loved all of their pictures, but I also loved all of everybody's pictures. Like, thank you, families that are very creative, or my people that are not doing families, but that do like couples themes or friend themes or just get dressed for work themes. Like, I don't know. I absolutely love it. So maybe you will send your juju my way. I'll show you my Halloween costume that I didn't do anything for Halloween, but I went to a Halloween party at the beginning of the month. I will post on the YouTube that picture. Maybe I'll post it on the Instagram. No, I will. I swear. But like I am not creative at all. I'll post that picture. You'll be like, Brittany, that was the best you could do. Yep. That was. I also had 30 seconds notice, but that was the best I could do. All right. With all that, I also was on call on Halloween all day, like that 24 hours, midnight to midnight. And so I was like, I'm just going to sit at home low key. I'm going to watch scary movies because I feel like that's what I used to do with my kids. Also, the bubbles are just hitting right today. I haven't had bubbles in so long that I'm like, we'll love them. We'll love the bubbles. I was going to sit and watch scary movies and I was really excited for it. No, I scrolled through the streaming platforms for like an hour. What do I want to watch? What do I want to watch? Chickened myself out of it because I was like, oh man, I don't want to be, I don't want to scare myself. Like, what if I have nightmares? There's nobody here to wake me up. There's nobody here to be like, Brittany, it's just a dream, right? Because I've mentioned I've had night terrors in the past. And so to have a nightmare is actually a very scary, scary thought. Like if you think Freddy Krueger type style, like having a nightmare is actually very scary. Freddy Krueger is actually my scariest. He is my ultimate fear goblin. Like I am terrified. I was terrified about him till I was 22 years old and had never even seen the movie. Then I watched all of the movies trying to desensitize myself and I remained terrified of Freddy Krueger. Part of it, terrified of knives. The other part of it, I have night terrors. And so it's a real thing that you can't wake up and it's real. So like, no, Freddy Krueger, so scary. So now the idea of being alone in my house after watching all of these scary movies, I couldn't do it. So what did I do? I turned on Selling Sunset. I watched Selling Sunset. And then I finished it off this morning. And what my takeaway from this is, as you already know, I love shit TV. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. But my thoughts on this, on Selling Sunset, Brie is a baddie. Brie is a baddie. Love her. You can't tell me nothing. I love her. Chelsea and Emma, ew, ew, ew. As far as women go, ew. As far as characters go, ew. As far as friends go, ew, ew, ew. 10 out of 10, dislike. Nicole, okay, bye. I guess she's moving to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm sorry for Nashville because I love Nashville. It's my number one happy place, and also my number two happy place. I'm sorry for Nashville because she's actually ew, gross. Bye. But leave the show. We dislike you. You're a shit human. And then Mary, I have watched a lot of videos, memes, things come to across talking about how Mary is a drama queen. Mary is being ridiculous. Mary, ew, Mary. What I have to say about Mary, I don't have a huge opinion on Mary specifically. My thought on this topic is Mary's house was broken into while she was gone with her husband. Mary's house was burglarized. Mary had people jump a privacy wall, break into her home, steal everything she owned that mattered. Some of it monetary, some of it emotional, some of it like family heirlooms. Like what? No. But even aside from anything being stolen, nothing has to be stolen. When somebody invades your privacy, your safety, it changes a lot of dynamics in you. That is trauma. Trauma to be at home, trauma to leave home, trauma to trust, trauma to do. There's so many different aspects of that. So all of the people in the whole wide world that are coming at her for her being a drama queen and overreacting and only wanting her peace and overreacting to somebody's gesture, whether they felt it was personal or not. Like what? No, the woman's house was burglarized. That's terrifying. And I say this as recently having my garage broken into by somebody that I know, nothing being stolen. It does a weird thing in your body. Your home is the place of safety, period, the end. And you're going to react in a lot of different ways. And that's going to show up in a lot of different places. Hers just happens to be showing up publicly. That's what I have to say about that. If you ever had your house broken into, all of the big feels for you because scary shit. Home is the safe space, right? All right. Enough of that. Poo poo on that. My ache and really go. God, I'm trying to talk so fast and also not. My ache and relief of the week. Without going too far into it, money for children. Money for my children is my ache. What I will say is that when your children get older and older and older, first of all, those of you listening that have itty bitty children and you're like, oh, they're so expensive. Let me let you know, they don't ever get cheaper. Never. Never. They might in fact get more expensive. So that is my ache of the week. That is my public service announcement. And that is my own personal, aside from the current government crisis that I will not go into because we don't do politics here. But I will say that is a very, very, very scary thing and is impacting me, my job, the people that I know very, very, very profoundly. And it is terrifying. So all of that leads me into my relief of the week. Might be these bubbles. They are fantastic today. But also, I invited a friend over this weekend. She was busy and didn't come. But I did invite her over. I know we can all be like, ooh, wow. I know. I did. I told you there's something very different about moving into my new spot, and I'm really excited about it. And I invited company over. So that is progress for me. For somebody who doesn't invite people over, I did. And that's exciting. Even if they didn't come, it's exciting. And I'll take it as a not really, I mean, I guess it's not a relief. It's not like a, whew, that cool thing happened. But it is very much when we talk about growth and progress and healing and things like that, I invited somebody into my safe space. And I think that says a lot about who I am. So there's that. All right. I put out onto the social webs. Social webs? I put out onto the social webs, like, what do we want to hear about next? I got the broken family / divorce request. At first, I was like, I can't really talk about the divorced family because my parents didn't get divorced until I was 30. So I didn't grow up in that. And when it happened, I was like, holly fucking Luya, it's about time. And then I thought more and more and more about it. And I'm like, well, but my kids grew up in a divorced family, right? Their dad and I divorced when they were little, when they were 4 and 6. And so I lived that other side. And I was like, I could probably make this work because while I didn't have a divorced family growing up, I had a broken as fuck family growing up that impacted things very, very differently. And so I was like, well, let's just see what happens. I think I could do it from my own experience, which is obviously what this podcast is, but I could tie some things in there like that. I can make that work. So what I'll start off with is that people say that divorce breaks homes. But like I just said, mine was broken long, long before any type of divorce papers were signed. And with my parents not divorcing until I was 30, like I remember the phone call. I was actually in Nashville, Tennessee on a conference. I was at a psychology conference. And I got the phone call. And I was so excited. I was like, fucking finally. I'm sorry for you. Are you okay? And also, this needed to happen so long ago. Like, I was thrilled about it. Because my parents were miserable. My parents hated each other. I don't know if they hated each other. I don't want to put feelings in their brains. But they did not like each other. And that was very obvious to all of us. And it was detrimental to all of us in different kinds of ways. So I just remember being pretty okay with that. I've talked to my brothers since, and I know that my brothers actually were not as happy about that. I wish I could go back and talk to Chase more now about it since he was the youngest, but RIP, bro. So anyways, I only know what I know from my side of things. And that was that I was 30. so there is that. I think that when two people stay together out of hate or habit, routine, fear, whatever, that impacts the kids watching it in various different kinds of ways, right? Because you interact differently with people that you tolerate versus people that you love. You interact differently with people that you have disdain for versus people that you genuinely love. You interact differently when it is forced than when it's this very natural and organic kind of way. And try as we might, children pick up on that. Children know. Children hear things through walls. Walls are thin unless you are living in a bunker, unless you are living in a cinder block house. Walls are thin and kids hear a lot of things, right? So they're hearing the arguments, they're hearing the conversations, They're hearing the contentiousness. And that's if you're doing it at your best. If you aren't, if you're doing it like my family did, it is loud. It is aggressive. It is detrimental. Like, I saw so much power and control happen, and not for the sake of me, not for the sake of us kids, but for the sake of I don't fucking know what it was for the sake of. It was for the sake of just doing what had always been done, possibly. I've never actually talked to my parents about it. I've talked to my parents about a lot of things, whether they wanted to talk to me about it or not. I've forced it on them. I've actually never, ever, ever spoken to my dad or the rattlesnake about, like, why did you stay? Well, I never have. So I don't really know their why, but I know I saw a lot about a lot about a lot. And being able to see that as a kid, to see, in my experience, I saw the rattlesnake just spew constant venom and anger and hatred that nobody could do anything right. And as a child, watching your mother tell your father, who I have always deemed my father as Superman, greatest hero of all time. My dad and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they are both on the same pillar of awesomeness. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, real life American hero in obviously Hollywood terms. And my dad is that as well. Like, yes, that is how I view him. So to see this woman constantly verbally attacking and cutting him down, like, that does a thing. Like, what are you doing? You're being so mean to this person that I care so much about, this person that I view as my safety. Because while the rattlesnake was never my safe space, my father was my safe space. And even though, like, my dad was often used as as a consequence, right? Like, if I got in trouble at school, I couldn't stay home because she didn't want me home with her. So I had to go to work with my dad. And so that was a consequence, but also not really, because I would rather be at work with my dad where I wasn't getting yelled at or screamed at or chastised or belittled than at home. So my dad is the safe space. I was at one point sent to go live out of town with my dad when he was working out of town. And I had to change schools and everything because I wasn't allowed to be at the house. But even though that was deemed a consequence and I didn't want to change schools and all of that type of thing, my dad was always a safer space to be. I could just be me. We could have conversations. I didn't have to walk on eggshells around my dad, all of those types of things. Whereas if I would have stayed at home, I did have to walk around eggshells. So I've already seen this person be emotionally, let's take out all of the physical stuff, but like emotionally and psychologically damaging to me as a kid. But I also witnessed her doing this to him, to say terrible things to him, like terrible things that it's enough to just make you want to, like, crawl in a hole and never have hearing again. Like, just actually terrible. um and so, to be a kid and see all of that, it's conflicting, because you're like, how can this person continue to treat this person so horribly? This evil person treat this person you view as your safe space so horribly, and them not protect themselves, or it appear that they're not protecting themselves. And so as a kid, you're like, what's actually happening here? I don't know. Do I need to jump in and protect them? And there were times where I did jump out of bed in the middle of the night and run into a room and be like, don't say that about my dad. While she's sitting there saying, because my dad does construction, he does steel erection, has his entire life, spends a lot of time hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet off of the ground every single day, to have to hear her in the middle of the night screaming, "I hope you fall off of a building" at work, wild, wild. Who says that? Who? I'm sorry, you don't get to say those things. And, to run out of my room and be like, "You can't don't say that about my dad. Like, you're wishing horrible harm against my father, and I hear you, and I hear you." And then it's like, why isn't he leaving her? Why won't he just leave? Why do we have to come back into town every weekend when he's working out of town and I'm living there? Why do we have to actually come back into town? I don't know. I don't understand. It is confusing about why we have to continue to endure pain and suffering, why we have to continue to endure that. And so what kind of precedence does that set for a child? Like, you just have to over and over and over again, no matter what. Like, that feels weird. That feels very wonky. And as a kid trying to learn their way, that feels confusing, right? Um, and so that was my family together. The appearance, like, that dysfunctional, it was dysfunctional. Those things could be said in the middle of the night on a Friday or Saturday night. And then the appearance of what it looks like on the other side. Then we go to church. We're this happy family going to church. We're all arriving together. Everybody is dressed appropriately. Everybody looks very nice. Everybody has the social skills that some people would die to have, right? Like, fully engaged in the church. Even me as a kid, like, I'm running like Sunday school for little itty bitties, like all kinds of stuff, right? So we're showing up in society as this well-functioning, well-oiled machine. We show up, everybody's happy, everybody's charismatic, everybody's great. And then you go home. And then you go home and you're back to this sort of like walking on eggshells, this like constant fear of a landmine popping off. But then you go to a school function. I've talked about it before. I was very tapped into my school. I did band, I did dance. I was in, school fundraisers for like runway shows and all kinds of, I was tapped in. I did sports. I did a lot of things, and my parents were always there. My parents were always there, and not only were they just there, they were often the loudest in the crowd. So now you have these parents that are showing up for you at all of your things, cheering you on so loudly, volunteering to be present, to transport, to carpool. And then when there's no more eyes on it, you have the fighting, you have the eggshells, you have the volatility. And so what does that show? That is teaching a child to put on a happy face. Here's my game face. It's go time. And then you walk back through the door and it's scary again. So there's a contrast that is in there between that, like the appearance of family, but the reality of the dysfunction if a family is broken and is staying together. And obviously that is what I know to be true, is this broken family that stays together much longer than they ever should. Emotionally, like I said, that walking on eggshells, the confusion, and the loving two people that can't really stand each other and are fighting or not standing up for what they believe, right? Because I also have this the rattlesnake, very independent, very independent. And both my parents collectively taught me to be very independent, to be able to take care of myself, to stand up for myself, to vocalize what I believe in. And if things are wrong, to do what is right, regardless of who is looking. So my parents collectively instilled this level of integrity and independence and self-sufficiency and things like that, like really, really awesome traits. But I saw a lot of that um in the rattlesnake as well. Like, it wasn't just something they taught me. I saw her as this very independent, very charismatic, very lovely, proud woman. And again, then you go behind closed doors. So seeing these things, right? And then seeing my dad, who I already said I viewed as this protector, I viewed as this safe space, to see him get torn down by her. Like, how is your safe space also so I don't know, for lack of a better word, weak in those situations? And maybe that's an unfair word, but that's the one that I saw. And that's what it felt very spineless, and it felt very weak. And that felt very, very, very confusing to me as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, even. And it shaped me. Seeing these things in a household shaped me to be controlling, in the sense of like, only I'm going to be the one to be able to do it right. And I'm sure a lot of that came from being chastised if it was done incorrectly. So therefore, I'm the only one who could do it right. And I'm not going to, figure out the other side of that. I'm hyper independent. I talked about that on a couple episodes ago. And then just constantly creating chaos for myself, because the chaos also felt like what was normal. And to be able to, if you grow up in this household where two people are coming together and they're supposed to be together, then it doesn't appear that there's anything wrong. Even if it feels wrong, you don't necessarily know as a child that it is wrong, that there is this level of chaos, and that some of these harsh words, like, they don't feel right, but it also feels normal for a relationship. And so you don't learn that it is not appropriate to talk to people like that, and that you learn that people are going to keep coming back over and over and over again, no matter what you say, which is, these are incorrect lessons. This is trauma. This is dysfunctionality. Like, these are horrible things. So that was, I think, tricky all by itself. Most kids wish that their parents would get back together, and I just wished mine would divorce. And that wasn't because I wanted them apart per se. Like, that wasn't because I was like, divorce. But it was because I wanted peace. It was because I knew what that looked like. To go out of town and be with my dad was safe. To go back into the house was volatile. So having these two households, like, when my dad would work out of town, felt comfortable. And I liked that better. So yeah, I wish my parents would have got divorced a long time ago. And then obviously, as I became a young adult, had my own children, things like that started to make even more sense. That I'm like, why the fuck are these people still together? Not that it hasn't impacted me or didn't change who I am or cause negative impact to me, but like, fuck, why? And it was really confusing to try and figure out, like, even in my own relationships, like, right, being married to the boy's dad and then my second marriage, to determine what was more painful, like the being together or being apart. And when you grow up watching that being together is painful, but you endure it, it's very hard as an adult to see the other side of it, that like, that being apart is actually less painful. Moving away from this situation is less painful. It's going to subside. That pain is going to subside. And while it's going to add other trials and tribulations, you're not still walking into landmines day after day after day after day after day. But you don't know that. You don't know how to determine what's more painful, the togetherness or the being apart. And so you choose what you've learned. And that can be damaging. And so I think with that, like, that whole idea that we hear more and more and more today, that, oh, like, we stayed together for the kids, we're staying together for the kids. It is genuinely the most. Like, I cringe every time I hear it. I'm like, the kids don't need you to stay together. You're like, genuinely, respectfully, your kids don't need you to stay together. Your kids need you to live your life and be happy and healed and live your truth so that they know how to live their truth, and they also know how to go into healthy relationships, because kids learn what relationships look like from their parents. And if their parents are living dysfunctional relationships, they're going to go into unhealthy relationships too. They're going to go into dysfunctional relationships too. And that sucks. I grew up at some point and ended up on the other side of that, because then I was a divorced parent of 2 boys. And I had to constantly convince myself that this was best for the boys. And that did not come easy. That was not the first thought in my brain. Like, I didn't ask for that divorce, right? Like I've talked about before, I didn't ask for that. It's not something I wanted. But then as things were progressing and moving forward, I really had to work very, very hard, double time, triple time, quadruple time, to be like, this is best for us and the boys. Like, us not being together is best because this is unhealthy. And that was hard because I didn't see that. That wasn't something that I was privy to my whole life. I don't want to expose my boys and their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions. So, like, I won't really touch on their experiences. But what I will say is that from my perspective, as the adult now going through this, right, I lived in this very broken home that was very, very, very dysfunctional, that stayed together and intact. And all I wanted was stability and safety, right? I wanted to know where I was safe. I wanted to know that I wasn't walking into, the landmines every day, like an angry grizzly bear every day. I wanted to know that. And so that is all I knew to be true. I didn't know what it looked like on the other side of that, but as a single mother, all I knew that I wanted as a child was safety and stability. And so I worked overtime to try and focus and provide safety and stability for both of my boys while also trying to heal. So trying to do something that you don't actually have a roadmap to do, just an idea, like this beautiful fairy tale of what safety and stability looks like, but you don't know how to get there. You don't know how to achieve it. You're trying to heal and get someplace you've never seen. It's tricky. It's tricky, but that was my focus. That's all that I really wanted. And I wanted to try and build this version of love and safety for the boys that I never really saw. And so you're guessing. It's a little bit like throwing darts in the dark, right? You know in general that the dartboard is ahead of you. You know in general that you want your dart to land on it successfully and as close to the bullseye as possible, but it is pitch black and all you can do is take your shot, and you have nothing really else to work with. And that is hard for a kid, and that becomes very challenging for an adult. So that, like, broken family dynamic doesn't just impact you as a little kid, it impacts you as a whole ass adult as well. I think with my boys, I didn't really break the cycle perfectly of what that looked like, of what my grandparents' life looked like, what my parents' life looked like. I didn't break that perfectly, but I did stop pretending that cycle wasn't there, and really had to double down and accept the fact that this is my life and it's allowed to be different. I'm allowed to take chances and I'm allowed to take choices. I'm allowed to be happy. I'm allowed to be safe. My kids are allowed to be happy and safe. And while they still might have had a lot of impact in a very different way that I can't speak to right? I can't speak to being a child of divorced parents at a very young age. That level of a broken home, I can't speak to that. That looks very, very different, and I don't know what that looks like except through their eyes. And like I said, I can't share their experiences. But I will say it hasn't always been easy. I will say we haven't always seen eye to eye. I will say there have been times where I messed up and misstepped. Um, and they've let me know, and it hasn't always been in a delicate, gentle way of letting me know, and that doesn't mean that it didn't need to be heard and acknowledged and kind of worked through. So, like, we're all in this together. I think that there is something very, very powerful about providing enough safety in your home where your children can come to you and say, "I don't like this. This doesn't feel good." And I know that in a broken home like I grew up in that very intact but broken home, there was no safety for me to go say, "I don't like the way that this feels." There was no safety when they were both together. There was only safety when they were apart. And it did impact me when I saw one parent hurting because of the other parent. Like, that impacted me as a child. And I know that that's impacted my own children when they've seen that happen through their experiences with me as their mother as well. Like, when they see a parent hurting, when they don't understand why things are the way that they are. And I think my children, not my parents, I think that my children have been given a little bit of a different opportunity because there is a little bit more safety, or a lot of bit more safety, to navigate some of that, because it was important for me to break that cycle, because it was important for me to let them know that, like, it's not always perfect out there, and we also don't have to fake it till we make it. Like, sometimes we just need to walk away from situations that are hurting us or harming us. And yes, sometimes detaching, like in the experience of a divorce, that's hurtful and that's harmful. And also, like, what are the other potential long-term effects that could occur? And does a child deserve to go through that just because of a parent? The answer is no, they don't. Um, I think what I learned through all of this about loving and anger and letting go was, you're allowed to love somebody. You're allowed to be angry at them all at the same time. And then you're allowed to choose yourself and what works best for you and let go in the way that you need to let go. Right? Like, I'm not here to determine why anybody stays together or gets divorced. Like, you do you. You do you. Let go of what you need to in order to stay happy and functioning for you. Like, on an airplane, right? When they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first, it really, really, really is important to take care of yourself first so that you can show up and be a parent, so that you can show up and be healthy for your child, because your child is watching you. Your child needs you. Your child wants you, and your child is watching every single move, trying to determine what their future relationships are going to look like, what their conflict resolution is going to look like, what their intimate relationships are going to look like, and how they're going to raise their children as well. And they're going to either take that and be like, "I'm doing it exactly that way," or they're going to take that and be like, "I'm not doing it at all that way. And now I'm going off into the yonder where I don't understand and I don't really know, but I know that that's got to be better than this right here." And that can be very, very scary, very, very challenging. And it's not a good blueprint to work with, but sometimes it's the best that kids have. So I think as parents, we owe children more. Be better. Be be better. That's it. Like, a kid deserves that. They didn't ask for all this. I think as far as, um for the people out there that are saying I'm doing it for the kids, I think it couples into, or it, like, relates back into what I just said, that it's like there's a lot of things that we do for kids. And as a parent, we know that that is a very selfless act. It is a very selfless act to be a parent. And It's a very thankless act to be a parent, right? Like, we don't always get, you know, the thanks or the gratitude or the um understanding or anything that maybe we think we deserve, but like as a parent, it's selfless and we do it no matter what. And so I understand how that can be very conflicting to be like, but I'm doing this for my child no matter what. And then to also turn around and be like, but this is what I have to do to keep me healthy and happy and safe and sane. And I think those things contradict each other, but I'm always going to lean towards like you have to be selfish sometimes, and you have to be selfish when it comes down to taking care of yourself, your well-being, your mentality, because that is going to impact how you show up for your children. Now, if you're sitting here being like, "Oh, well, selfishly, I want to go out to the club and party and rage, and somebody else can just take care of my kids." Nah, that's not what I'm talking about, my friend. But whenever it comes down to healthy and volatile relationships that we're in, like we really need to be mindful and respectful and considerate of our children and about what they're seeing in the long term and how that's going to impact them. And so we need to do better for them, and staying together for the kids in an unhealthy, unhappy relationship where people don't get along, don't like each other, aren't living in their most genuine and authentic self. Kids see that, and that is going to impact how they grow up and how they raise their own family. And do we want our children to grow up and stay in relationships just because? Or do we want our children to grow up and learn how to have healthy, respectful relationships and teach their children to be different and better and wiser and make smarter choices? So I think those are the questions you ask yourself. I, again, can't tell you what to do, but like our kids matter. And it doesn't just matter today or tomorrow or until they're 18. It matters when they're 23 and 24 and 26 and 30 when my parents got divorced and well into my 40s at this point. Like, these things matter. I would say to my kid version, like the kid version, like the little Brittany. I mean, if I could go back and be like a big Brittany sitting on a little Brittany's shoulder, like all I could ever say would be like, trust your intuition. Like as a little Brittany, whenever that little Brittany was like, this isn't all right. This doesn't feel good. I don't like this. I don't like that she treats him this way. I wish that I would have carried that with me in a different way, because I know that a lot of those toxic traits that I watched came from her. And there was a large part of me in my early 20s that was just like that. And that's not okay. And I wish that that wasn't the truth. It shames me to say those things, because even though I knew that they were happening, it very much became a part of who I was, that controlling, that dominating, that like, I'm going to tear you down to get my way in this relationship. Like I did a lot of those things because that's what I witnessed my whole childhood. And that is unfortunate and harmful. And we can't go back, but fucking sucks to know that that's where I was at one point in my life. So I would tell that little Brittany to trust that I know what's right and wrong, and that if it's wrong here, it would be wrong if I did it as well. And um I don't know how much that would have done, because you don't know what the other side looks like, but that's what I would have told myself. Sometimes sometimes the healthiest thing that we can do is to really stop forcing togetherness and just start building honesty. And that's where that healing starts. And it doesn't start when the papers are signed, right? I think if my parents would have been honest way back into time, that a lot more healing could have been done in the family, or for me as a child, and maybe for my brothers as well, as opposed to waiting until divorce papers got signed, and they're still nasty. My dad's not, but like she's still nasty. She's still venomous. She still posts on social media about all of her nasty false truths, and it's like, that's so wild. Your kids are grown. Your kids are old. Like, your youngest would have been 28 this year, and you still have nasty negative things to say. That's unfortunate. That's embarrassing for you. But like, your kids still see that, and it still impacts us as adults, right? And I know that even like the divorce of my kid's dad and I, whether we intend for it to impact the boys or not, it still really, really does. And there's still comments that are made, and there's still harmful things that impact the boys, and they don't always understand it, or it doesn't make sense, because it's like, bro, you got divorced 20 years ago. Like, why is this still an issue? And I think that's really unfortunate. And so it's hard. Like, it's always going to be hard when kids are involved, but we do owe it to our children to just show up and be better. And that's what I have to say about that. Like I said, when that request came through, I was like, I don't know if I have anything to say about that, since I didn't grow up in a divorced family, but I actually do have quite a bit to say about that. Because I care about kids, and I care about us as people. Like, I care about myself as an individual and what makes me happy and healthy and whole. I also know that I care about my children and what makes them happy and healthy and whole, and to be able to acknowledge, where I was great and where I was not is a humbling experience, because even though I didn't do it exactly the same way my parents did, thank God, I still did it in ways, and some ways I still did it in ways that sometimes were very incredible, and then I did it in other ways that were sometimes kind of harmful. And as parents, we are always going to have to take accountability for that, but I would rather take accountability for um doing these things and also being able to show personal growth, as opposed to doing these things and saying, but I didn't get to start growing on my own until you were 18 because we stayed together for you. I have yet to meet a child that is like, yeah, my parents stayed together for me, and that was great, and they were totally happy, and everybody lived happily ever after, and I'm so glad that they stayed together for my benefit. I've never met a person. Doesn't mean they're not out there. And God, if that is you, that your parents were miserable, hated each other, wanted a divorce, and stayed together just for you, and you turned out to be able to be on that other side, that you're like, yes, I'm so glad that happened, let me know. I want to talk to you. I want you on this pod. I want to know that experience, because I've never heard anything like it, and I am now intrigued. So if that is you, hit me up. But if that's not, I think we all can relate to the fact that, a broken home doesn't have to necessarily mean divorce, and a non-divorced family doesn't necessarily mean that your family's not broken. With that, new episodes come out every single Monday. The unedited version comes out on YouTube. Everything else on all other streaming platforms. You can like, follow, and subscribe, because that is how we build a community. Follow on the social medias on Instagram and TikTok at Dysfunctionally Yours Podcast. And until next time, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles, bye.